I haven't slept properly in 3 months. Not since the nightmares started dreams where I'm standing in a crowd, watching something terrible happen on a hill, and everyone around me is screaming, but I can't look away. When I wake up, my sheets are soaked through, and there's this metallic taste in my mouth like I've been chewing on copper wires. My therapist said it was burnout. 7 years pursuing a doctorate in ancient religious texts will do that to you, apparently. She suggested I take a break from my dissertation, maybe find some lighter work to reset my relationship with the material. That's how I ended up here, in this god-forsaken archive beneath the monastery of St. Jerome, cataloging forgotten manuscripts for a family I've never met. The Kessler Foundation, they called themselves. Old money. European aristocracy with roots stretching back to before the Crusades. They'd been funding archaeological digs and preservation work for centuries, accumulating an obscene collection of religious artifacts that most scholars would kill to access. When they offered me the position 6 months, excellent pay, minimal oversight, I didn't ask too many questions. I should have. The archive itself occupies 3 levels beneath the monastery's foundations. Stone corridors carved sometime in the 12th century, maybe earlier. The air down here tastes ancient, cold, and thick with the smell of old parchment, mineral deposits, and something else I can't quite place. Something organic and faintly sweet, like flowers left too long in a vase. The lighting is terrible. Fluorescent tubes that flicker at random intervals, casting everything in this sickly blue-white glow that makes the shadows feel wrong, too still, too deliberate, like they're waiting for something. I've been working alone for most of the past month. The only other team member, Dr. Rashid, left abruptly 2 weeks ago. Didn't even collect his final paycheck, just sent a terse email saying he couldn't continue, and that was it. His workspace is still set up exactly as he left it. Coffee mug half full, notes scattered across the desk, a jacket hanging on the back of his chair. I try not to look at it. At night, when I'm cataloging in the deepest level what the monastery's ancient records call the Chamber of Penitence, I swear I can hear distant chanting, rhythmic, guttural sounds that seem to come from the stone itself. I've checked. There's nothing. No hidden speakers, no ventilation shafts carrying sound from the monastery above. Just cold stone and shadows that stretch too far in the flickering light. Have you ever been somewhere that felt like it was watching you? Not a person, the place itself, the walls, the air, the silence between your heartbeats. That's how this archive feels. Like it's been waiting, like I'm supposed to be here. I found the box 3 days ago. I was cataloging a section of the eastern wall when I noticed something odd, a discoloration in the mortar, a rectangular outline barely visible beneath centuries of accumulated grime. The stones around it showed signs of crude repairs, as if someone had sealed it up in a hurry. I shouldn't have investigated. I should have logged it and moved on. But there was something about it, something that made my hands move before my brain could catch up. The false wall came apart easily, revealing a hollow space about 2 feet deep. Inside was a wooden box, maybe 18 inches long and a foot wide. Oak, I think. Black, with age and moisture. The lid was covered in carved symbols, sigils I didn't recognize, interlaced with Latin phrases that made my skin crawl. Noli videre, do not look. Testimonium maledictum, cursed testimony. Qui legit condemnabitur, who reads shall be condemned. The box had been opened before. Recently. The wax seal around the edges was cracked, partially melted as if someone had applied heat. There were scratch marks on the lid, deep gouges in the wood that looked almost frantic, desperate. Whoever opened it last hadn't been careful, or hadn't cared. I should have stopped, should have reported the find, let someone else handle it. Instead, I carried the box to my workspace, set it under the lamp, and pried open the lid with trembling hands. The smell hit me first, not decay, but something worse. Something that reminded me of my nightmares, of standing on that hill watching something terrible unfold. Old blood and desert wind and fear so thick you could taste it. Inside, wrapped in what looked like preserved lambskin, was a scroll. The parchment was brittle but unnaturally well preserved, as if something had kept it sealed away from time itself. When I touched it, the material felt warm, Not room temperature warm, body warm, like touching living skin. I unwrapped it slowly, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The scroll was covered in dense script, a mixture of what looked like Aramaic with elements of Greek and Latin scattered throughout. The handwriting was cramped, urgent, the letters pressed so hard into the parchment that some had torn through. And at the top, in larger script, a single phrase repeated 3 times. Testis sum, testis sum, testis sum. I am witness, I am witness, I am witness. That's when the lights flickered and went out. In the darkness, I heard it a sound like distant hammering, metal striking wood in slow, deliberate rhythm. 3 strikes, then silence, then 3 more. When the lights came back on, I was alone. But the scroll felt warmer in my hands, and I could have sworn I'm still not sure that some of the letters had rearranged themselves when I wasn't looking. I should have put it back, sealed it up, left this place and never returned. Instead, I leaned closer to the ancient text and began to translate. The parchment shouldn't feel like this. I've handled hundreds of ancient documents, papyri, vellum, treated leather, fragments so delicate they'll disintegrate if you breathe on them wrong. They all feel dead, inert. This scroll feels alive. The warmth pulses beneath my fingertips, a rhythm that matches my own heartbeat, or maybe I'm matching it. I can't tell anymore. The first lines are standard enough identification, context, the kind of bureaucratic preamble you'd expect from a historical document. But the handwriting itself is wrong. It starts neat and controlled at the top, but by the 4th or 5th line, the letters begin to slope, to press harder into the material. Whoever wrote this was afraid, getting more afraid with every word. I, Shalem, son of Naban, scribe in service to the procurator's office under Pontius Pilatus, do set down this account in the 5th day following the execution of the Nazarene called Yeshua. My Latin is rusty, but I managed to piece together the first paragraph. Standard witness testimony format used by Roman administrators. Nothing unusual. Except, I feel it before I see it. A shift in the air behind me, like someone stepping into the room without making a sound. The temperature drops just slightly, enough to raise the hair on my arms. I spin in my chair. Nothing. Empty archive stretching into shadow. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting that sickly glow across rows of shelves and forgotten boxes. But the shadows, they're wrong. They're stretching in directions that don't match the light source, pooling in corners where they shouldn't reach. I turn back to the scroll. The warmth has increased. Now it feels less like touching skin and more like holding something that's running a fever. I pull my hand back, but my fingers leave faint impressions in the parchment, as if it's softening under my touch. That's impossible. Ancient documents they can't. A sound interrupts my thoughts. High-pitched, barely audible at first. Like tinnitus, that ringing you get after a concert, except it's coming from outside my head, from the scroll itself. The noise builds slowly, oscillating between frequencies, and underneath it, I swear I hear something else. Voices, distant and distorted, like a crowd speaking all at once, too far away to make out individual words. I should stop. My hands are shaking. There's a pressure building behind my eyes, the same feeling I get right before my nightmares start. That sense of standing on the edge of something vast and terrible. Instead, I lean closer. The text continues, detailing the days leading up to the crucifixion. Shalem describes being ordered to accompany a century of Roman soldiers to oversee 3 executions on the hill called Golgotha. Standard practice. Public executions as deterrent. I've read dozens of historical accounts just like this, but then the details start to deviate. The sky darkened 3 hours before noon. Not clouds, but a darkness that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Like smoke from invisible fires, the centurion Longinus ordered torches lit, but the flames would not hold. They guttered and died, again and again, as if something was feeding on the light. My mouth is dry. I reach for my water bottle without looking away from the scroll. The condemned was brought forward. I had seen many criminals face execution, had watched murderers and thieves maintain their composure even as the nails were prepared. This one did not struggle, did not plead. His eyes. The text stops mid-sentence. There's a smudge here, dark brown like dried blood. When I try to brush it away, it smears, still slightly damp after 2,000 years. Impossible. His eyes watched us. Not with fear, not with hate, with something else. Something that made the soldiers avert their gaze, that made the crowd fall silent. Longinus himself, hardened by 20 years of warfare, turned away and would not meet those eyes. The ringing in my ears intensifies. I can taste copper on my tongue, metallic and thick. The fluorescent lights flicker once, twice. We were warned not to record his gaze. The lights go out completely. In the darkness, I hear it again, that hammering sound. Closer now. 3 strikes. Pause. 3 strikes. The rhythm is deliberate, measured, like someone working with terrible patience. My breath comes in short gasps, fogging in air that's suddenly freezing cold. Something moves in the corner of my vision, even in the pitch black. I can sense it, a shape that's somehow darker than the surrounding darkness, a presence that makes my hindbrain scream at me to run. The lights flicker back on. I'm still alone, but when I look down at the scroll, my breath catches. The text has changed. Not all of it, the first sections remain the same, but new lines have appeared below where I stopped reading. Fresh ink, still wet, written in the same cramped hand. He watches the watchers. My nose starts bleeding. The sensation hits me all at once, a flash of somewhere else, someone else. Desert sun beating down on my back. The smell of unwashed bodies and fear. The sound of sobbing and praying and cursing. I'm standing at the base of a hill, looking up at 3 crosses silhouetted against a sky that's too dark, too red, pulsing like an infected wound. Someone is screaming. The sound cuts through everything else, raw and inhuman, and filled with such absolute terror that I want to claw my own ears out rather than hear it continue. Then I'm back in the archive, gasping, tasting blood in my mouth. My nose is bleeding heavily now, dripping onto the scroll. The blood soaks into the parchment instantly, spreading out in thin veins like it's being absorbed, drunk by something thirsty and ancient. I stumble back from the desk, my chair clattering to the floor. The hammering sound echoes once more. 3 strikes, then silence. On the scroll, one more line has appeared. You cannot stop reading. And I realize, with a cold certainty that makes my stomach drop, that it's right. I can't. I don't remember sitting back down. One moment I'm standing in the middle of the archive, blood dripping from my nose onto the cold stone floor, and the next I'm back at the desk with the scroll spread before me. My hands are steady now, though I can't feel them properly. Everything seems distant, wrapped in cotton, except for the words on the parchment. Those are crystal clear, burning themselves into my vision. I need to understand what this is, who Shalem was, what he witnessed that was so terrible it had to be sealed away for 2 millennia. The next section provides more context. Shalem wasn't just any scribe, he'd been specifically assigned to document politically sensitive executions, a role that required absolute discretion and loyalty to Rome. He describes his work with clinical detachment at first, the kind of emotional distance you'd need to watch people die and record their suffering for administrative records. I had transcribed the deaths of 47 criminals in my 4 years of service, zealots, mostly. Men who thought they could overthrow the empire with righteous fury and sharpened bronze. They all died the same way, defiant at first, then broken, then silent. The cross does not allow for dignity. It is designed to humiliate, to destroy not just the body, but the soul, to make an example that others will remember and fear. The Nazarene was different from the first moment I saw him. The text becomes denser here, the handwriting more erratic. Shalem begins to lose his professional composure, and you can see it in the way the letters press into the parchment, in the words crossed out and rewritten, in the growing desperation of his account. They brought him to Golgotha in the 3rd hour of the morning, though the sky had already darkened as if the sun itself was hiding its face. The crowd that gathered was larger than usual, followers and enemies both, drawn by rumors that had been spreading through Jerusalem for days. Some said he had raised the dead, others that he claimed to be the Son of God. I recorded these claims without judgment. I was there only to witness and document. But when they stripped him and stretched him across the crossbeam, when the first nail pierced his flesh, here, another bloodstain interrupts the text, darker than the others, spreading out in a pattern that looks almost deliberate. almost like a handprint. The earth trembled, not violently but with a deep, continuous shudder, as if the ground itself was recoiling from what was being done upon it. The crowd felt it. I saw people stumble, saw mothers grab their children. The soldiers laughed nervously and made jokes about the gods being angry, but they worked faster, wanting to finish quickly and leave this place. I stood at my position, 20 paces from the base of the crosses, and began to record. Time of death, method of execution, witness statements. The routine helped. The familiar patterns of documentation kept my hands steady, even as the darkness thickened and the temperature dropped despite the spring heat. As I read, something else begins to happen. The words on the page start to affect me physically. When Shalem describes the smell of blood and sweat, I smell it iron and salt and fear sweat thick enough to coat my tongue. When he writes about the cold wind that began to blow despite the still air, I feel it raising goosebumps on my arms. This shouldn't be possible. Documents don't do this. Text doesn't have the power to invoke sensory experiences this vivid, this real. The first words he spoke from the cross were a prayer, in Aramaic. I recorded them phonetically, not understanding their full meaning at the time, but as he spoke, the ground trembled again, harder this time, and I heard something else beneath his voice. Something speaking with him, or through him, a chorus of voices, thousands of them, all saying the same words in languages I didn't recognize. My vision blurs. For a moment, I'm not seeing the archive anymore. I'm seeing the hill, the three crosses stark against that impossible darkening sky. I can hear the crowd now, not screaming but praying, a low susurration of desperate pleas in a dozen different languages, and above it all, a voice. The archive snaps back into focus. I'm gasping, clutching the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles have gone white. There's an echo in my ears, a remnant of that voice, and it makes something inside my chest feel hollow and vast. I force myself to keep reading. The other two condemned men died within hours. They screamed, they begged, they cursed us and their gods and themselves. Normal deaths, if death by crucifixion can ever be called normal. The Nazarene did not scream, did not beg. His silence was worse than any sound. In the 6th hour, the darkness became absolute. The torches would no longer light. The sky, I cannot describe the sky. It was as if the heavens themselves were tearing, great wounds opening in the fabric of creation. People were fleeing now, even the soldiers. But I remained at my post, recording, because that is what I had been trained to do. That is when he looked at me. The temperature in the archive plummets. My breath comes out in visible clouds. Every light in the room flickers simultaneously, and for a split second, I see it a symbol drawn in the condensation on the metal shelving units. The same symbol from the lid of the box. It appears on every surface where moisture has gathered, repeated hundreds of times, an infinite recursion of the same warning. Noli videre, noli videre, noli videre. Do not look, do not look, do not look. His eyes were not the eyes of a dying man. They were not even the eyes of a living man. They were something else entirely vast and terrible and ancient, like looking into deep water and realizing there is something massive moving in the depths below. I tried to look away. Could not. My hand continued to write, documenting his death, even as some part of my mind understood that what was happening on that cross was not death as I understood it. He spoke again. 7 words. They were recorded in the gospel accounts, I learned later. But those accounts did not capture the sound of those words, the weight they carried. When he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The very stones around us cracked. The veil of the temple tore. And beneath our feet, I felt something ancient and vast and hungry stir, as if his suffering was opening a door that had been sealed since the foundation of the world. I can't stop reading. My eyes burn, but I can't look away. The text continues to flow, each word pulling me deeper into Shalem's account, deeper into that moment on Golgotha when something impossible happened. In the 9th hour, he died. Or so I thought. I watched his body go slack, watched the last breath leave his lips. I recorded the time, began to note the disposition of his remains. Standard procedure. The soldiers were preparing to break the legs of the condemned to hasten death, to get this over with before the Sabbath. Then his eyes opened. The scroll seems to pulse under my hands. The warmth has become uncomfortable now, almost burning. I should stop touching it, but I can't let go. My fingers have gone numb, and there's a tingling sensation spreading up my arms like frost climbing glass. They should not have opened. The dead do not open their eyes. But he did, and when he looked at me again, when he looked through me, I understood that I was not recording history. I was recording a warning, a testimony that was never meant to be preserved, never meant to be read by anyone who came after. He spoke directly to me, not aloud, in my mind, in a voice that sounded like my own thoughts but was not, could never be. You will not be excused. The lights go out again. This time, in the darkness, I hear that voice, the same voice Shalem heard 2,000 years ago. It doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside my own head, speaking with my own inner voice, but wrong, twisted, as if something else is using my thoughts as a mouthpiece. You will not be excused. When the lights flicker back on, I'm not alone anymore. The figure stands in the far corner of the archive, where the shadows are deepest, where the fluorescent lights never quite reach. It shouldn't be possible. I would have heard someone approach. The archive door is 40 feet behind me, and the ancient hinges scream like dying animals whenever it opens. But there's no sound, just the sudden, crushing awareness that something else is here with me in this underground tomb. At first, I can't make out any details. The figure is darker than the shadows around it, a void in the shape of a person. Then, my eyes adjust, and I wish they hadn't. It's cruciform. Arms stretched out horizontally, legs straight and together. The head hangs at an impossible angle, bent too far forward, as if the neck has been broken. But even with the head bowed, I can see its eyes 2 points of dim luminescence, like fireflies trapped behind dirty glass. They're not looking at me. Not yet. They're fixed on something only they can see. I try to move. Can't. My muscles have locked up. Some primal part of my brain recognizing that movement means attention, and attention from this thing is something I cannot survive. The archive is silent except for my own ragged breathing, and a new sound, a slow, wet dripping. Water, maybe, or something thicker. I can't tell where it's coming from. The figure doesn't move, but I become aware that it's coming closer anyway, shifting through space in a way that doesn't involve walking. One moment, it's in the corner. The next, it's behind a shelf 10 feet closer. Then, beside a filing cabinet. Each time the lights flicker, it advances, eating up the distance between us without ever seeming to actually travel. My hand is still on the scroll. The parchment has become almost too hot to touch, and I can feel it writhing under my palm like something alive trying to burrow into my skin. The temperature continues to drop. Ice crystals are forming on the metal surfaces, spreading out in fractal patterns that hurt to look at. My breath comes out in thick clouds that hang in the air longer than they should, as if the cold is so intense it's freezing the air itself. I force myself to look down at the scroll, breaking eye contact with the apparition. The text has changed again. New lines have appeared, written in the same ancient hand, but with a modern urgency. He sees you. He sees you. He sees you. Repeated down the page, over and over, until the words lose meaning and become just shapes, symbols that burn themselves into my retinas. The hammering starts again, closer now, not echoing from distant walls, but right here in the archive with me. 3 strikes. Metal on wood, the sound of nails being driven home. Each impact sends vibrations through the stone floor, up through my chair, into my bones. I risk a glance back at the figure. It has raised its head. Those luminous eyes are fixed on me now, and I understand with crystalline clarity why Shalem wrote that he couldn't look away. There's something hypnotic about that gaze, something that hooks into the deepest parts of your consciousness and pulls. I can feel my sense of self beginning to dissolve at the edges, like paper held too close to flame. The figure's mouth opens. There's no sound, but I see its lips moving, forming words in a language I shouldn't understand but do. Testis, 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 witness, witness, witness. The lights strobe now, flickering on and off in rhythm with the hammering. In the brief flashes of illumination, I see more details I wish I couldn't. The figure's hands have holes in them, black wounds that go all the way through. Its feet are fused together, pierced by a single point of darkness. and across its torso, beneath tattered clothing that might be ancient Roman fabric or might be strips of decaying flesh, I can see other wounds, dozens of them, hundreds, each one weeping something that isn't blood. The scroll starts to move. It unrolls by itself, parchment unfurling across the desk, despite having been pressed flat for centuries. The edges curl and uncurl like fingers grasping at air, and as it opens, I see new text appearing, fresh ink writing itself across the ancient surface. 2,000 years I have waited. 2,000 years of silence, of being sealed away, buried beneath stone and oath and prayer. The scribe Shalem thought he could hide what he witnessed, thought he could contain the truth in a wooden box and Latin warnings. But truth, like blood, seeps through everything eventually. You found me, or I found you. The difference matters less than you think. You were always going to find me. From the moment you descended into this place, from the moment you let your nightmares guide you here, you were mine. The Watchers have been waiting for a new witness, someone to finish what Shalem could not. I'm reading this while simultaneously hearing it in my head, spoken in that wrong voice that uses my thoughts as its puppet. The figure is closer now, just on the other side of my desk. I can smell it, desert dust and old blood and something else, something chemical and wrong, like formaldehyde mixed with burning hair. What do you want? My voice cracks. I didn't mean to speak aloud, but the question tears itself from my throat. The figure tilts its head, that broken neck allowing angles that make my stomach turn. When it speaks again, the voice comes from everywhere at once, from the walls, from the scroll, from inside my own skull, to be witnessed, to be remembered, to be understood. I don't understand. You will. The lights go out completely, total darkness. I can't see the figure anymore, but I can feel it, standing right in front of me now, close enough that I should be able to hear it breathing, except it doesn't breathe. The dead don't breathe. Something touches my face, cold fingers, impossibly cold, pressing against my forehead like a benediction or a curse. Where they touch, my skin goes numb, and behind my eyes, images begin to flood in. The hill at Golgotha, the crowd, the screaming, the 3 crosses silhouetted against a sky that's tearing itself apart. I'm not just seeing this, I'm there. I'm Shalem. I'm holding my stylus and recording tablet, watching as they crucify the Nazarene, watching as the darkness grows and the earth screams, and something vast and terrible begins to wake beneath the surface of the world. I see him look at me, at Shalem, at whoever is foolish enough to witness. And in his eyes, I see everything, every sin, every act of cruelty, every moment of suffering inflicted by one human on another, stretching back through time in an infinite chain of violence and pain. I see the weight of every wrong thing ever done, pressing down, crushing, suffocating, and I understand that this is what he carried. This is what broke him, not the nails, not the cross, but the sheer mass of human evil that he tried to absorb, to take upon himself, and it wasn't enough. Could never be enough, because we keep adding to it, keep feeding that darkness, generation after generation, until it's become something that can never be redeemed, never be forgiven. The vision releases me. I'm back in the archive, gasping, tears streaming down my face. The lights flicker back on, weak and uncertain. The figure is gone. But the scroll is still writing itself, fresh lines appearing in rapid succession, covering the blank spaces at the bottom of the parchment. The centurion Longinus pierced his side with a spear. Blood and water flowed out. Standard procedure, verification of death. But what came out was not just blood, was not just water. I saw it, though I could not write it then, though I spent the next 20 years trying to forget. What came out was something else, something that had been trapped inside the vessel of his flesh, something that the Crucifixion released. The Watchers, the Ancient Ones, the powers that rule the darkness of this world, they thought they had won, thought they had silenced the threat to their dominion. But in killing him, they opened a door, and on the other side of that door, the text stops mid-sentence. A new line appears, in different handwriting, my handwriting. I am witness. I didn't write that. My hand is still resting on the scroll, but I didn't move it, didn't will my fingers to trace those words. They appeared on their own, or something wrote them through me. The hammering echoes one more time, 3 strikes, then silence. And in that silence, I hear my own voice, recorded from nowhere, playing back from the stone walls. You will not be excused. I don't know how long I sit there, staring at the words written in my own hand. Minutes, hours. Time has become elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that make my head hurt. The timestamp on my phone says it's 3:47 a.m. That can't be right. I started working at 8 p.m. Have I really been here for almost 8 hours? The archive is quiet now. Normal. The temperature has stabilized, the lights have stopped flickering, and there's no sign of the apparition that stood across from me. If I'm being rational, I could convince myself it was a hallucination, sleep deprivation, stress, exposure to whatever preservatives they used on ancient documents. But the scroll tells a different story. The new text is still there, still written in my handwriting. And below it, more lines in Shalem's desperate scrawl. The account continues, but it's become increasingly unorthodox, diverging from any historical record I've ever encountered. The sky did not scream. The people screamed. But it felt as though the sound was coming from everywhere, from the stones, from the air itself, as if creation was protesting what was being done on that hill. I have read the accounts that survived, the Gospels written years later, decades later, by men who were not there. They speak of darkness and earthquakes and torn veils. They make it sound almost poetic, almost prophetic. They were not there. They did not see what I saw. My hands are trembling as I continue translating. The Latin becomes more fractured here, mixed with Greek and what might be Hebrew, as if Shalem was reaching for any language that might adequately describe what he witnessed. Professional training dissolving in the face of the inexplicable. The shadows under the cross moved independently. I watched them. I was supposed to be recording the time of death, the condition of the body, but I found myself watching the shadows instead. They stretched out from the base of the cross like hands, like fingers, reaching toward the crowd. People stumbled when those shadow hands touched them. Some fell to their knees. Others ran. The soldiers felt it too. I saw Longinus, who I had known as a man without fear, who had survived 20 campaigns, step back from the cross. His face had gone pale. His hands shook as he gripped his spear. "The earth wants to swallow us," he said to me. "It wants to drag us down for what we've done here." I pause, rubbing my eyes. They burn from staring at the ancient text, from the strain of translating by the dim light. But I can't stop. Won't stop. Something in Shalem's account has hooked into me, and I need to know what happened next. The scroll seems to pulse with warmth again, almost encouraging me to continue. In the moments after his death, and I write death, though I am no longer certain that word applies, the darkness began to lift. The sky became visible again, though it remained strange, bruised, like flesh after a beating. The crowd was dispersing, people fleeing in terror or shame or confusion. I remained. I had to finish my documentation, had to record what happened after. That was my duty, and duty was all I had left to cling to in that moment. The soldiers came to verify the deaths, standard procedure, break the legs of the condemned to hasten suffocation. But when they approached the Nazarene, Longinus stopped them, said there was no need. The man was clearly dead. Head lolled forward, no breath, body already beginning to show signs of rigor. But I saw his eyes. They were open, just barely. Just enough that I could see them tracking my movement as I stood there with my stylus and tablet, watching me. Even in death, especially in death, he was watching. The text becomes harder to read here. The handwriting deteriorates into near illegibility, as if Shalem was writing faster and faster, desperate to get the words out before something stopped him. Longinus pierced his side with a spear. I stood close enough to see it happen, close enough to see what came out. Blood, yes. Water, yes. The medical texts explain this, a pierced pericardium releasing fluid. I knew this. I understood the physiology. But what I saw was not just bodily fluids. Something else came out with the blood. Something that moved against gravity, that rose instead of fell, that spread through the air like smoke from invisible fire. It had no color I could name, no substance I could describe, but I felt it wash over me like a wave, and for a moment, here, the text stops. There's a gap, blank parchment, as if Shalem couldn't bring himself to write what came next. Then, in smaller letters, cramped and terrified, for a moment, I was somewhere else. Inside his mind, experiencing what he experienced. The weight of every sin, every cruelty, every act of evil ever committed or yet to be committed, all of it pressing down at once. I understood why he cried out in the darkness, why he asked to be released from this cup, because no being divine or mortal should be asked to carry that much suffering. And in that moment of shared consciousness, I heard him speak, not aloud, in my thoughts. You were not meant to see this. No one was meant to bear witness to this. What you have seen, you cannot unsee. What you have recorded, you cannot unwrite. You will carry this testimony like I carried the cross, a burden that will break you. You will not be excused. My breath catches. The same words the apparition spoke to me. The same phrase that's been echoing through the archive. This isn't just a historical account. This is something else. Something that's been waiting, sealed in this box, for someone to break the seal and release it. I'm that someone. The lights flicker once. The temperature drops. And when I look down at the scroll, more text has appeared, not in Shalem's hand, not in mine, but in something else. Letters formed from what looks like dried blood, raised slightly from the parchment's surface. The watchers see what the witness sees. The witness becomes the watched. The cycle continues, 2,000 years turning, and still the hill stands, and still the cross casts its shadow, and still the eyes are open, watching, waiting for the testimony to be completed. I jump back from the desk, my chair scraping against stone. This isn't possible. Documents don't write themselves. The dead don't speak through ancient parchment. But even as I think this, I know it's a lie. Everything that's happened in this archive has been impossible, and yet it's happened. The apparition was real. The visions were real. This message, appearing in blood on 2,000-year-old parchment, is real. My phone buzzes. A text message from Dr. Rashid, the colleague who left abruptly 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard from him since his resignation email. The message is brief. You found it. I'm sorry. I should have destroyed it. Should have burned this whole place down. But I was a coward. I ran instead. Don't read to the end. Don't finish the translation. It's not a warning. It's a summoning. Before I can respond, another message appears. He's been watching me. Every night. Standing at the foot of my bed. Waiting. I can't sleep. Can't eat. I see. His eyes everywhere. In windows. In mirrors. In the faces of strangers on the street. Don't finish it. The messages stop. I try to call him. No answer. Try to text back. The message won't send, bouncing back with an error. When I look up from my phone, the scroll has unrolled completely. The entire surface is now covered with text, not just Shalem's original account, but layers upon layers of writing, different hands, different languages, different centuries, as if others have found this scroll before me, added their own testimonies, their own warnings, their own desperate attempts to make sense of what they witnessed. And at the very bottom, in the blank space that should be the end of the document, more words are appearing now, writing themselves as I watch. They took his body from the cross, wrapped it in linen, placed it in a tomb sealed with a stone. 3 days, they said. 3 days of silence while the world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. I went to that tomb. I needed to see, needed to verify. Professional obligation or morbid curiosity, I cannot say. But when I arrived at dawn on the 3rd day, the stone had been rolled away. The tomb was empty, or so they claimed. But I saw inside, and what I saw, the text stops again. But this time, instead of continuing on the page, the words begin to appear on the walls around me, traced in frost on the cold stone, written in condensation on the metal shelves, scratched into the dust that covers everything in this archive. The same phrase, over and over. He rises when witnessed. The testimony gives him form. The record sustains him. And you, reader, are recording now. You are witnessing. You are completing the circle that Shalem started 2,000 years ago. The hammering starts again. But now I realize it's not coming from outside. It's coming from inside my head. inside my chest, matching the rhythm of my own heartbeat. 3 strikes. Pause. 3 strikes. Nails driven into flesh, driven into wood, driven into the fabric of reality itself. I stagger back from the desk, but the words follow me. They're on the ceiling now, appearing in the cracks between stones. They're on the floor, spelling themselves out in arrangements of dust and debris. They're inside my eyelids when I blink, burning after images that won't fade. You cannot stop reading. You cannot unwitness. The testimony demands completion. The record must be finished. And despite every instinct screaming at me to run, to flee this place and never return, I find myself walking back to the desk, sitting down, placing my hands on the scroll, continuing the translation. Because it's right. I cannot stop. The witness cannot choose to stop witnessing. I haven't left the archive in 3 days. I know this because my phone before it died marked the passage of time with its relentless countdown of battery life. 100%, to 75%, to 50%, to 25%, to 10%, to nothing. Each percentage drop a reminder that the world above still exists, still functions according to normal laws of physics and time and cause and effect. Down here, those laws are suggestions at best. I've been translating continuously, working through Shalem's account, but the text keeps changing. Every time I look away and look back, new passages have appeared, or old passages have rearranged themselves. Words migrate across the parchment like insects, clustering into new meanings, new warnings, new revelations. Sleep is impossible. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on that hill. The visions have become so vivid that I can't tell anymore which is real, the archive or Golgotha. They've started to blend together, the cold stone of the monastery foundations merging with the sun-baked rocks of that ancient execution site. The walls of the archive show signs I can't explain. Fresh marks have appeared, scratch marks, deep gouges in the stone that look like fingernails dragged across the surface. But the stone is centuries old, harder than anything human fingers could mark. Yet there they are, 4 parallel lines, repeated hundreds of times across every wall, as if someone tried to claw their way out, or claw their way in. I've started finding things that shouldn't be here. A Roman coin pressed into the mortar between stones, scraps of fabric that might be ancient linen or might be something else, and blood-dried drops of it, forming trails that lead nowhere, that start and stop at random points throughout the archive. Every time I blink, I lose a few seconds. That's the most disturbing part. I'll be reading the scroll, focused on translating a particularly difficult passage, and then I blink, and suddenly I'm standing across the room with no memory of having moved. Or I'm writing notes in a journal I don't remember bringing down here. Or I'm speaking aloud, mid-sentence, continuing a conversation I have no recollection of starting. The time loss is getting worse, more frequent, longer gaps. This morning, if it's still morning, I have no way to tell I blinked and lost 4 hours. One moment it was dark, the next the emergency lighting had kicked on, and my hands were cramping from writing. When I looked down, I'd filled 20 pages with text and handwriting that looks like mine but isn't quite right. The letters are too angular, pressed too hard into the paper. The text is in Aramaic. I don't speak Aramaic, can barely read it with a dictionary. But I wrote this fluently, without hesitation. And when I try to translate it back, the words make my head hurt, make my vision swim. The scribe Shalem died alone, 20 years after the crucifixion. He lived as a hermit, driven mad by what he witnessed. They found his body in a cave outside Jerusalem, surrounded by scrolls, all of them blank, except one, all of them sealed with wax and Latin warnings. He tried to record what he saw, tried to bear witness, but the weight of that testimony crushed him. I am not Shalem. I am what comes after. I am the testimony itself, alive and hungry, waiting for a new witness to complete the record. You thought you were reading history. You are writing it. Every word you translate becomes part of the account. Every moment you witness becomes part of the testimony. You are the archive now, and I live in you. I drop the journal. It falls to the floor with a sound like breaking bones. The hallway outside has changed. I went to check the door earlier, or I think I did. The memory is hazy, and found that the corridor doesn't lead back to the stairs anymore. It loops. I walked for what felt like hours, following the passage back toward the exit, but every turn brought me back to the archive door. The same room, the same scroll waiting on the desk. Dr. Rashid was right. This isn't just a record. It's a trap. The apparition has returned. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It's been here the whole time, I realize. Standing in the corner, watching me work. How did I not notice? How many hours have I spent translating with that cruciform figure observing from the shadows? When I finally look directly at it, it tilts its broken head in acknowledgement. Almost friendly, almost grateful. The voice comes again, not from the figure but from inside my own thoughts. You're doing well. The testimony is almost complete. Just a few more passages, just a few more hours of witnessing. I want to leave, I say aloud. My voice sounds wrong, hoarse from disuse, or maybe from screaming. Have I been screaming? I can't remember. You will. Once the record is finished. What happens then? Then you become part of the testimony, like Shalem, like all the others who found this scroll and thought they could understand, could contain, could control what happened on that hill. The scroll is calling to me. I can feel it even from across the room, even with my back turned. It wants to be read, wants to be witnessed, wants to be completed. My hands are shaking as I return to the desk. I've been picking at my fingernails, I realize. They're bleeding, the skin around them torn and ragged. When did I start doing that? I don't remember. The translation continues. Shalem's account has reached the moment after the crucifixion, the aftermath, the disposal of the bodies. His words become increasingly erratic. They took him down from the cross at sunset. The body should have been stiff, rigid with death. Instead, it was limp, almost liquid, as if the bones had dissolved. The soldiers handled him carefully, almost reverently, though they claimed it was just to avoid trouble with his followers. I helped wrap the body. My duty as official witness extended to recording the burial. I touched his skin. It was cold but not cold, a temperature that existed in some space between life and death, between flesh and something else. His eyes were still open, just barely, still watching, and as we carried him to the tomb, I felt his gaze follow me. Impossible. The dead do not see. But he saw. He saw everything. Inside the tomb, as we arranged the body on the stone shelf, I heard him speak again, not aloud, never aloud. In my mind, 3 days. That is what the prophecies say. 3 days in the darkness. But time is different here, in this space between death and resurrection. For me, it will be an eternity. For you, it will be 3 heartbeats. And when I rise, I will remember everyone who watched me fall. Every face in the crowd. Every soldier. Every scribe with his stylus and tablet, recording my suffering for administrative convenience. I will remember you, Shalem, son of Naban. The text blurs. I'm crying, though I don't know why. My tears fall on the parchment, and where they land, the ancient words shimmer and reform into new patterns. He kept his promise. On the 3rd day, the stone was rolled away. The tomb was empty. The body was gone. The official explanation was theft. His followers had stolen the corpse to claim resurrection. But I knew better. I had felt his consciousness in that tomb, had felt him waiting in the darkness, gathering strength, preparing for what came next. I went to the tomb. I needed to see for myself, and I found, here, the text stops. But instead of continuing on the page, my own hand begins to write, moving without my conscious control, filling in the gaps that Shalem could never complete, that the tomb was not empty. Something remained. Not his body. Something else. An impression in the stone where he had lain, burned into the rock like a shadow cast by some terrible light. And that shadow was watching, always watching, waiting for witnesses to complete the testimony, to record what could never be recorded, to understand what could never be understood. My hand keeps writing. I try to stop it, but my fingers won't obey. They move across the page, filling in more and more text, adding to Shalem's account, extending the testimony forward through time. 2,000 years. 2,000 years of waiting, sealed in this scroll, hidden in this archive. The watchers have been patient. They knew someone would eventually find it. Someone curious. Someone seeking answers. Someone willing to read to the end despite all warnings. That someone is you. No, I whisper. But my hand writes, yes. The figure in the corner has moved closer. It's standing directly behind me now. I can't see it, but I can feel it, a presence that radiates cold and suffering and something like hunger. Its broken head rests against my shoulder, those luminous eyes peering down at what I'm writing. Almost done, it whispers. The voice is still using my own thoughts, but now I can hear something else underneath an older voice, speaking Aramaic, speaking from 2,000 years ago and 2 feet away and from inside my own skull all at once. The hammering has become constant now. No more pauses, just continuous striking. Metal on wood, on stone, on flesh, building in tempo and volume until it drowns out everything else. My hand writes, the testimony is completed when the witness becomes the witnessed, when the observer becomes the observed, when the reader becomes the read. That is the only way to break the cycle. That is the only way to be excused. And then I understand. The scroll isn't about the crucifixion. Not really. It's about witnessing, about the unbearable weight of seeing suffering and being unable to stop it, unable to look away, unable to do anything except record and remember and carry that memory like a cross on your own back. Shalem witnessed the crucifixion and was destroyed by it. I witnessed Shalem's testimony and am being destroyed in turn, and when I'm gone, someone else will find this scroll or whatever form the testimony takes next, and the cycle will continue. Unless I can break it, unless I can become what the scroll is demanding, not a witness, but the witnessed. Not the one who records, but the one who is recorded. I pick up the scroll with both hands. The parchment burns my skin, but I don't let go. I hold it up to the emergency lights, and through the translucent material, I can see shadows moving, figures trapped in the fibers of the ancient document. Shalem is there, and others I don't recognize. All of them witnessing, all of them trapped by their own testimony. Show me, I say to the figure behind me. Show me what happens next. Its cold hands close over mine, pressing my palms harder against the burning parchment, and the archive dissolves. I'm standing on the hill. The transition is instantaneous and complete. One moment I'm in the archive, surrounded by cold stone and artificial light. The next, I'm here. Golgotha, the place of the skull, the execution ground outside Jerusalem. The sky is wrong. It's daytime. I can feel the heat of the sun, but the sky itself is a deep, bruised purple, torn with cracks of red like infected wounds. Light comes from somewhere, but it doesn't behave right. It casts multiple shadows, each pointing in a different direction, and the shadows themselves move independently, reaching and grasping like living things. The air tastes like copper and dust and fear. So much fear that it's become a physical presence, a weight pressing down on everything, making it hard to breathe. There's a crowd around me, hundreds of people, maybe thousands. Some are praying, some are weeping, some are laughing with the cruel joy of spectators at a gladiatorial game. And through the mass of bodies, I can see them. 3 crosses. They rise from the rocky ground like trees of torture, rough-hewn wood stained dark with old blood. 2 of them hold figures that are clearly dying criminals or rebels or whoever Rome has decided needs to be made example of. They're screaming, or they were. Now they just hang there, slack and broken, suffocating slowly as gravity pulls them down against the nails. But the center cross is different. The figure hanging there is still. Head bowed, body motionless, except for the slight rise and fall of labored breathing. From this distance, I can't make out details, but I don't need to. I know who it is, what it is. Come closer, a voice says beside me. I turn. Shalem stands there, younger than I imagined him, maybe 30, with a scribe's ink-stained fingers and eyes that have seen too much. He's holding a stylus and a wooden tablet covered in wax for writing. His hands are steady, but I can see the tremor in his jaw, the way he's clenching his teeth to keep from screaming. You're not real, I say. Neither are you. Not anymore. We're both testimony now, both trapped in this moment, this eternal witnessing. He gestures toward the central cross with his stylus. Go on. You need to see. That's why you're here. That's why any of us are here. I don't want to move closer. Every instinct is screaming at me to run, to flee this place and this moment and this horrible convergence of suffering and divinity. But my legs carry me forward anyway, pushing through the crowd, through people who don't seem to see me or don't care. As I get closer, details resolve. The figure on the cross is a man, though saying man feels inadequate. His body is a canvas of brutality, lash marks crisscross his back and sides, the flesh torn and bleeding. The crown of thorns pressed into his skull has created rivulets of blood that run down his face, mixing with sweat and tears. But it's the wounds in his hands and feet that make my stomach turn. The nails are huge, driven through the wrists rather than the palms. I remember reading somewhere that the palms can't support the body's weight, that Roman executioners learned to nail through the bones of the forearm. Each wound is a ragged hole weeping blood and clear fluid, and I can see bone underneath, see the way the flesh has torn from the weight of the body pulling down. This is obscene. This is horror beyond anything human beings should inflict on each other, and yet I can't look away. He's still alive, I whisper. For now, Shalem says, appearing beside me. But watch. This is the moment. This is what I could never write down, could never adequately describe. The man on the cross lifts his head. The movement is slight, just a few degrees, but it changes everything. His eyes open, fully open, and they're not the eyes of a dying man. They're vast and luminous and ancient, like looking into the heart of a star that's been burning since the foundation of the universe. And they're looking at me, not past me, not through me, at me, specifically, as if he's known I would be here, standing at the foot of this cross 2,000 years after the fact, and 2,000 years before it, trapped in this eternal moment of witnessing. When he speaks, I hear it in every language at once. In Aramaic, in English, in tongues I don't recognize, all overlapping into a single voice that resonates in my bones. Your witness completes the circle. The ground beneath my feet begins to tremble. Not an earthquake, something more deliberate, more conscious. Like the earth itself is responding to his words. Cracks appear in the rocky soil, spreading out from the base of the cross in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. My shadow stretches out in front of me, cast by a light source that shouldn't exist. And as I watch in horror, the shadow begins to solidify, to become real. It darkens and thickens until it's more substantial than I am, and then pain, sudden, shocking, absolute pain in my hands. I look down to see nails, impossible nails that don't exist in the physical world, but are real, nonetheless, driving through my shadow's hands, pinning it to the ground. The pain is mine, even though my actual hands are uninjured. The nails pass through the shadow and into the stone beneath, anchoring me to this place, this moment, this testimony. No. I try to pull away, but I can't move. The shadow holds me like iron chains. Shalem watches with sad eyes. I told you. The witness becomes the witnessed. That's the only way to complete the testimony. The scroll appears in the air between us, floating horizontally like an offering. It's unrolling itself, yards and yards of parchment unfurling into the air, and on every surface, text is appearing, not written, emerging, as if the words were always there, just waiting to become visible. But it's not ink that writes these words. It's blood, my blood, flowing from my pinned shadow, running upward against gravity, tracing letters and symbols across the ancient parchment. The scroll is writing itself using me as the ink, recording this moment, this witnessing, this endless cycle of suffering observed and recorded. Make it stop, I beg. Please. The figure on the cross speaks again, and this time, his voice is softer, almost gentle. You think this is suffering? This pain you feel now? This is nothing. This is an echo of an echo. What I carried, what I tried to take upon myself was the weight of every evil thing ever done, every betrayal, every murder, every cruelty, the accumulated sin of all humanity, past and future, crushing down into a single point. And it wasn't enough, could never be enough, because you, all of you, keep adding to it. Around the hill, the crowd has changed. No longer ancient Romans and first-century Jews. They're everyone. People from every era, every nation, every possible timeline. All of them watching. All of them witnessing. All of them complicit. I see faces I recognize, Dr. Rashid, looking hollow and haunted. Others I don't know. Other scholars, perhaps. other fools who found the scroll and couldn't stop reading, all of them trapped here, their shadows pinned to the ground, forced to watch this eternal crucifixion. This is hell, I realize. This is what hell is. Not fire and demons, just this. Eternal witnessing of suffering. You can't stop, can't change, can't escape. Shalem nods slowly. Now you understand what I understood 2,000 years ago. Now you know why I tried to seal this away, why I carved warnings into the box, why I begged that no one else should ever witness what I witnessed. The man on the cross coughs a wet, rattling sound that makes my chest ache in sympathy. Blood runs from his mouth. His breathing is becoming more labored, more desperate. He's dying, slowly, agonizingly, and we're all here watching it happen, recording it, becoming part of the testimony. I don't want this, I say. I don't want to be part of this. No one wants to witness suffering, he says. And yet you all do it. You watch, you record, you consume it, you make entertainment of it. You turn pain into profit, tragedy into spectacle. Every act of violence you observe and do nothing to stop, you become complicit in. Every moment of suffering you witness and walk away from, you add your name to the testimony. This, he gestures weakly at his own broken body. This is what happens when you try to absorb all of that. When you try to take it upon yourself. It destroys you. It broke me, and I was divine. What do you think it will do to you? The scroll is still writing, still recording. The blood text covers every inch of the parchment now, front and back, an infinite testimony of suffering witnessed and recorded and perpetuated. And I realize this is the trap, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever found this scroll. The testimony doesn't just record what happened on Golgotha. It records every witness, every observer, every person who looked at suffering and chose to document it rather than prevent it. We're all complicit, all guilty, all pinned here by our own shadows, forced to watch the consequences of a world that values witnessing over intervention. The sky tears open. Not metaphorically, it actually tears, like fabric ripping, revealing something beyond, something vast and dark and hungry. The storm that Shalem described is here, boiling out of that wound in reality. And in its depths, I see eyes, thousands of eyes, the watchers. They've been waiting for this moment, for the testimony to be completed, for enough witnesses to gather that the weight of their collective guilt becomes its own form of power. The figure on the cross throws his head back and screams not in pain, but in rage, in frustration, in the absolute fury of someone who tried to save a world that didn't want to be saved, that preferred to watch suffering rather than stop it. And in that scream, I hear every unanswered prayer, every ignored plea for help. Every moment someone witnessed injustice and did nothing. The scroll bursts into flames, not consuming flames, but flames that burn the words deeper into the parchment, searing them into permanence. The testimony is complete. The circle is closed. The witness has become the witnessed. Reality fractures around me. I'm in 1,000 places at once, on the hill, in the archive, in the tomb, in every moment of suffering that's ever been observed and recorded. I'm Shalem, and I'm myself, and I'm everyone who's ever watched tragedy unfold and done nothing to stop it. And through it all, those eyes remain fixed on me. His eyes, watching, judging, witnessing the witness. I'm sorry, I whisper, though I'm not sure what I'm apologizing for. For reading the scroll? For not stopping? For being human? Sorry is not enough, he says. Sorry has never been enough, but it is all you have. The vision begins to fade. The hill, the crowd, the crosses, all of it dissolving like smoke in wind. But before it disappears completely, he speaks one last time. 3 days I was in the tomb, 3 days of darkness. But for you, for all witnesses, there is no third day, no resurrection, no escape from the testimony you've given. You are sealed in it, forever. The last thing I see before everything goes black is his eyes, still watching, still waiting, still witnessing as I have witnessed him. I wake up on the floor of the archive. The cold stone presses against my cheek. My body aches like I've been lying here for days. When I manage to push myself up, my joints crack and protest, stiff from disuse. The emergency lights are still on, casting their pale blue glow across the cluttered space. Everything looks normal. Shelves full of ancient texts, filing cabinets containing centuries of bureaucratic minutiae. The desk where I've been working, papers scattered across its surface, but the scroll is gone. The wooden box sits open on the desk, but it's empty now. The lambskin wrapping lies beside it, still holding the vague shape of what it once contained. When I reach for it, the material crumbles to dust at my touch, disintegrating as if 2,000 years of time have suddenly caught up with it. I check my phone. Dead. Has been for days, based on how long it takes to show any sign of life when I plug it in. As it slowly boots up, I see the notifications flooding in missed calls from colleagues, worried emails from the foundation, texts from friends asking if I'm okay. The date makes my stomach drop. I've been down here for 6 days. 6 days that feel like hours or years or an eternity, depending on which memories I trust. But some things don't match the narrative of normal time passing. My clothes are filthy, torn in places I don't remember tearing them. There are scratches on my arms, deep ones, like I've been fighting or falling or clawing at something. And my hands are stained, dark brown, almost black in the creases of my palms. When I run them under water from a bottle on the desk, the liquid turns rust red. Old blood. But not mine. I check for cuts and find nothing. The desk is covered in papers I don't remember writing on. Page after page filled with cramped handwriting in multiple languages. English, Latin, Aramaic, Greek. All of them variations of the same testimony, the same account, told from slightly different perspectives, as if I've been trying to complete Shalem's work, adding my own witness to the eternal record. At the bottom of one page, in my handwriting but not my words, the circle is complete. The testimony continues. The witness has been witnessed. The seal is broken. The watchers are satisfied. I should feel relieved. The scroll is gone. The apparition is gone. The visions have stopped. I can leave this place, return to the world above, forget any of this ever happened. But when I try to walk to the door, my body won't cooperate. Not because I'm physically restrained, but because something deeper, something in my mind, in my soul, knows that leaving is impossible. I am the archive now. The testimony doesn't need the physical scroll anymore. It's been recorded in me, written into the fabric of my consciousness. Every word Shalem wrote, every vision he experienced, every moment of witnessing has been transferred like a virus, replicating itself inside my thoughts. When I close my eyes, I see the hill. When I open them, I see the archive, but the two are no longer separate. They exist in the same space, overlapping, the ancient past and the present moment merged into a single eternal now. I try the door anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can still leave. The handle turns. The door opens. Beyond it stretches the stone corridor leading back to the monastery stairs, back to the surface, back to normal life. I step into the hallway and start walking. The corridor is longer than I remember. Much longer. I walk for what feels like hours, following the same path I've taken dozens of times before, but the stairs never appear. Just more corridor, more stone, more shadows stretching away into darkness. Finally, I reach a door. It looks like the exit. Has to be the exit. I push it open and step back into the archive. The same room, the same desk, the same empty box, sitting open like a mouth waiting to be fed. I try again. And again. Each time, the corridor leads me back here. Sometimes quickly, sometimes after hours of walking, but always back to this room, this archive, this eternal witnessing chamber. On the 5th attempt, I find something new. A piece of paper tacked to the wall beside the door, written in fresh ink. Dr. Rashid tried to leave too. Took him 3 weeks to accept he couldn't. The others took longer. Some are still trying. But the testimony keeps them, keeps us. We are the archive now. We are the record. We are the witnesses, witnessing ourselves be witnessed. Welcome to eternity. The handwriting is mine. I don't remember writing it. My phone finally powers on fully. Dozens of missed calls. I try to call back, try to explain, but the calls won't connect. The signal shows full bars, but every attempt at communication fails. The world outside can't hear me, or I can't reach them. The distinction feels meaningless. I return to the desk because there's nothing else to do. The papers are still there, still covered in testimony, but now fresh pages have appeared. Blank pages, waiting. A pen lies across them, still warm as if just set down. I shouldn't touch it, shouldn't continue the testimony. But my hand reaches for the pen anyway, and words begin to flow. I am witness. I stood on Golgotha. I saw him die. I saw his eyes remain open in death, watching, always watching. I tried to record it, tried to contain it, tried to understand what cannot be understood. Now I am part of it, part of the eternal record. Another voice in the testimony that spans 2 millennia. Shalem was the first. I will not be the last. The scroll will be found again, or rather, the testimony will find someone new, will call to them, will draw them down into this place where time becomes circular and witnessing becomes imprisonment. I'm writing this even though I don't want to. The words flow without my conscious direction, adding to the account, extending the testimony forward through time. And as I write, I understand that this is what happened to Shalem. This is what drove him mad, what forced him to seal the scroll away. He couldn't stop witnessing, couldn't stop recording. The testimony had infected him, made him its instrument, and the only way to end it was to try to contain it, to seal it away, and hope no one else would ever break that seal. But seals are meant to be broken, warnings are meant to be ignored, and every generation produces its scholars and seekers who think they can handle what their predecessors could not. A knock on the door makes me drop the pen. 3 strikes. Pause. 3 strikes. The same rhythm as the hammering from my visions, from Shalem's account, from the moment nails were driven through flesh and wood. Who's there? My voice cracks. No answer, just silence. Then, 3 more strikes. I approach the door slowly. Every instinct screams not to open it, that whatever's on the other side isn't something I want to confront. But curiosity, that same damned curiosity that made me open the box, that made me read the scroll, that made me translate every word despite the warnings, compels me forward. My hand closes around the handle. The metal is ice cold, cold enough that my skin sticks to it slightly. I turn it. The door opens. Beyond it, the corridor stretches into darkness. But standing in that darkness, just at the edge of the emergency lighting's reach, is a figure, cruciform, head hanging at an impossible angle, eyes glowing with that dim, luminous light. It's been here, the whole time, I realize. Waiting. Watching. Making sure the testimony continues. Making sure the witness doesn't escape. What do you want? I ask. The voice comes from everywhere at once, from the figure, from inside my head, from the stones themselves. To be witnessed, to be remembered, to ensure the testimony is never forgotten. Why me? Because you opened the box, because you read the scroll, because you chose to witness what was never meant to be witnessed. And now, the figure steps forward into the light, and I see its face clearly for the first time. It's me, my face, twisted and broken, hanging from a cruciform frame, my eyes glowing with that terrible luminescence, my mouth forming words in a language I don't speak but somehow understand. Now you are the testimony. You are the archive. You are what the next witness will find when they descend into this place, when they ignore the warnings and open the box and read the scroll that will appear again, because testimony cannot be destroyed, only transferred. You are Shalem now, and someone else will be you. The circle never breaks, the witnesses accumulate, and he watches it all from that hill, from that cross, from that eternal moment of suffering that we all helped create by choosing to watch instead of act, to record instead of prevent, to witness instead of intervene. The figure that wears my face reaches out with nail-pierced hands. I slam the door, press my back against it, breathing hard, heart hammering in the same rhythm. 3 strikes. Pause. 3 strikes. When I turn back to the archive, someone else is sitting at my desk. Dr. Rashid, but not as I remember him. Hollow-eyed, gaunt, staring at papers covered in text. His lips move constantly, forming words without sound, recording, witnessing, trapped in the testimony like everyone else who found this place. How long? I ask. He doesn't look up, just keeps writing, keeps witnessing, keeps adding to the eternal record. I approach slowly. His papers are covered in the same testimony Shalem's account, mixed with his own observations, mixed with something older and darker. The words seem to writhe on the page, rearranging themselves as I watch. On the top sheet, one phrase stands out, written over and over. He watches the watchers. He watches the watchers. He watches the watchers. And below it, in fresh ink, she's coming. The next witness. I can feel her approaching. Someone curious, someone seeking, someone who won't heed the warnings. The testimony calls to them. Always calls. Always finds someone new. Dr. Rashid finally looks up at me. His eyes are the same luminous glow as the apparitions. Not human anymore. Not really. Just another part of the testimony. Another voice in the eternal record. You should be writing, he says in a voice that echoes with dozens of other voices, other witnesses, other fools who thought they could understand what happened on that hill. The testimony must continue. The witness must witness. The cycle must repeat. Asterisk. I back away from him. From the desk. From the papers. But everywhere I look, I see more. The walls are covered now. Appearing when I wasn't looking. Text in 100 languages, all telling the same story from different perspectives, all witnessing the same eternal moment. The door knocks again. 3 strikes. This time I don't check. I know what's out there, know who's waiting, my future self, or my past self, or all my selves collapsed into one eternal witness, trapped in this archive, trapped in this testimony, trapped in this moment of understanding that some things should never be witnessed but always are. I return to the desk, pick up the pen. The paper waits, blank and patient, and I write, I am witness. I am archive. I am the testimony. And soon, very soon, someone else will find their way here, will open the box, will read the scroll, will add their voice to the eternal record. Because that's what we do. We witness, we record, we remember, we perpetuate the cycle of suffering observed and documented and passed on. He watches from his cross. We watch from our archives, and the testimony continues, 2,000 years and counting, with no end in sight, no third day, no resurrection, no escape, just this. Forever. Witness. The hammering echoes through the archive. 3 strikes. Then silence. Then a new sound, footsteps in the corridor above, someone descending the stairs, someone curious, someone seeking answers in forgotten archives. The next witness is coming, and I will be here to watch them read, to watch them understand, to watch them become part of the testimony, because that's what witnesses do. We watch, we record, we never, ever look away.